oh, this thing isn't working, replace. Oh, this isn't working, replace. Oh, this isn't working, replace. We spent more money than the cost of the appliance, and it still wasn't fixed. It was just, and I'm thinking in my mind, going, this person, and I could be wrong, but it's a great case where, it's just checking AI. Well, this isn't working. What it could be? Oh, well, replace this unit or replace that unit, and I mean, it's a joke that we replaced, and the cost of replacement was more than the cost.
Bots are good for saving time, increasing speed, helping you get a competitive edge, but they're not good at relationship building.
Welcome back to the podcast. Now, most business owners right now are experimenting with AI. I am. Some are getting small wins, some are overwhelmed, and a lot of people are quietly asking the same question. Is this actually making my business better or just adding more noise? Because here's what's happening in real time. We're in a shift that feels a lot like the early internet days. You know, when having a website went from optional to expected to absolutely necessary just to compete. And AI is following that same curve, but faster. And the gap is already widening between two types of businesses, those using AI as a novelty and those using it as an infrastructure. The difference? Well, one creates content, the other creates leverage. And on that, today's guest has been through that kind of shift before. Christy Oconnor has spent over 26 years in marketing from the early .com era all the way to today's AI-driven landscape. And she's focused on something most people get wrong. Not just using AI, but actually making it work inside a business. Well, we're going to get into what should be automated and what absolutely should not. We're going to get into why most AI tools still feel robotic and how to build systems that sound human, perform consistently, and actually move the business forward. So if you've been curious about AI, but also skeptical about whether it truly delivers, this is worth listening to. Let's get into it. Let's bring her on. Hi, Kirsty. Welcome to the Tony Durso Show.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you.
It is so good to have you on. I've been on your show and it was great. And I truly appreciate the opportunity to have you on mine, and talk about marketing and AI. And it's what is on the forefront of all our minds, how to turn AI into a real business advantage. It's just as I said in the intro. And I think one of the best ways to get going here is, can you tell us, Christy, what did you see during the early .com era that feels similar to what's happening with AI today?
Yeah, I can. I mean, back, you kind of had two camps. You'd have people that were just throwing up websites just to have one. They thought it was kind of a novel, fancy, they thought they were being cutting edge. And then you had a smaller group of people that were methodical and thinking things through and just quietly building systems. And they didn't realize it at the time, but they were building funnels. And they were understanding the scaffolding in the background and how the crawlers worked. And they were actually generating leads, which is how we know each other, and actually being able to leverage that system to be found in the algorithm. And those were the people that got in early, succeeded early, and rose to the top. And that's where all your SEO stuff comes from, all your meta tags come from, and now it's old hat for us. And we're experiencing the same thing right now with AI. Many people think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment. I thought you were done. I'm sorry. Because we're both in marketing for a long time, and we've seen this happen. And there's people that are newly into this, let's say past 5 years, maybe 10 years, but the older marketers, if I can put it that way, the people in for a longer time, see these patterns and see these shifts. And with that, while you were saying this, I was thinking, well, what are people getting wrong about AI right now? What are they doing incorrect? But go ahead and finish if you wanted to talk about the shift that's happening. But I did want to kind of get into that to educate the people who are listening today.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that are just sitting behind a console and just interacting, and they're passively using AI. And then you've got experienced people who can see the value in it and want to use AI at pivotal crossroad points to either route tasks or make decisions in order to create that speed and that competitive edge that we need in business. So I think that's the distinction. It's not really a novelty. It's when you really can plug AI into where you need speed, responsiveness, and where the revenue really flows. Which is like, for example, do you have a happy customer or an unhappy customer? That's a big difference. You can automate something by, say, for example, when someone buys something in your shop online, you send them an automatic thank you message. Or you might want to include, geez, maybe you'd like to, other people bought these things. Those are just basic automations. But where you can really leverage AI is in the decision making process rather than, maybe detecting the amount of time that the individual struggled to find their order or go to the checkout. Now you've got some real insights that you can leverage. And that's how you can leverage AI, is through the decision making process. So you do have two camps still. You've got early adopters that really have more experience in the digital space, that can see the value and understand where to plug it in and where it's routing tasks, routing responsibilities to your human counterparts. And then you've still got the people that are seeing it as a novelty. And matter of fact, there's probably a third group that has AI fatigue, that doesn't really, they're resisting it. There's AI resistance, and they don't really want to adopt it. They feel like it's going to replace them, or it's too complicated, and they're just avoiding it.
Yeah, I would like to talk more about that because I think some people just think it will do all these things for you that haven't really gotten into it. I've learned that myself. It only does so much, and you have to quality control it and check what it's doing because it's not perfect, it's not infallible, it can make mistakes. It can only do what the way I look at it is AI is like having access to the library, and it just pulls and gets information and gives it to you in based on what you've asked it to do. So it may not give you what you want, or it may give you not all of what you want, or improperly collate what you want. So you have to do this oversight on it. This is what I've run into. So it's not as easy as some people say, oh, they made millions of dollars, uh, using AI, but it doesn't necessarily go that way. It takes a bit of work.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a human in the loop. And you don't want to replace the trust building portion of business. And I think, matter of fact, voice AI is huge right now. It's something that everybody is adopting. But again, there's a lot of resistance because the actual consumer will tell the business, I don't want to talk to a bot. And you'll have the recordings, or you'll have the transcripts with people yelling certain words like representative. That's the old style. We used to say, oh, representative. It was a keyword, and it would trigger the bot or the automated system, say, oh, let me get you to somebody that can help. And so we're relying as just regular consumers on our memory of what it used to be like. But businesses are scrambling to adopt the new technology to compete and to keep up with the pace, because they're feeling the pressure to keep up with the pace. But there is still a disconnect. So if I can just talk for a minute on how we can help businesses make that connection on how to give their customers a predictable path forward. There's a lot of talk about, should we disclose if it's an AI? And then other business owners want to try to get the best voice model and the best experience to try to pretend that it's not AI. And now we lack regulation where we're not required to disclose that it's AI. So there's best practices involved, and then there's just sort of a methodical way of thinking about customer satisfaction in the old-fashioned sense. If your customers are left wondering, if your customers are confused, if your customers are frustrated, you're not going to have happy customers. Happy customers are paying customers. Unhappy customers are going to go find where they can find that satisfaction. The best way to get customer satisfaction is through a predictable path forward. Let's just use an example as an answering service, because AI voice is so huge right now. If you have a busy contracting office, plumbing, electricity, whatever you're doing in the service industry, and you say, geez, it'd be really good to have AI voice handle my calls. My customers won't be left waiting. Great, I have a happy customer. Well, if your consumer doesn't understand that it's predictable, and they've got this robot trying to ask them questions and trying to talk to them, and they don't know how to interact with it, you no longer have a predictable path. When you're a business and you have an answering machine or an answering service, those are predictable paths. The old way, it's predictable. It's a machine. I leave a message. I know a person's going to call me back. The more modern way of having a human answering service, the business treats it just like an answering machine. They have a human being answer the phone. They know they have to call that person back. But for some reason, there's a disconnect with modern businesses thinking, well, if AI answers the call, I don't have to make the calls anymore. Now it's fully automated. AI has taken over my business. It hasn't taken over your business. The only thing it has done is it's taken maybe a $1 or $2 answering service bill and reduced it to 35 to 50 cents a minute. That's the only thing. It did not remove the person. It helped you maybe increase some efficiency, maybe kick off some other automations, maybe do a few other things, but you can't remove that human being. That predictable path still has to remain there. Still call the people back. Hey, sorry we missed your call, just like an answering machine. So I think that we need to sort of get this collective awareness on where AI genuinely fits in. I want to use one more example before I throw it back to you. The code readers on cars. A lot of mechanics are out there. They used to work on the old style carburetors and combustion engines, and now everything is computerized. And now you have to have chips and sensors and all that. And I remember my father saying how frustrated he would be working on these cars. Lo and behold, years later, now you could just plug in this code reader, and rather than doing all these trials and errors and tests and diagnostics on your vehicle, you just plug in the machine, it gives you a code, you read the book, and it tells you what's wrong. That's a similar process by which we want to go by now in AI, where it didn't remove the mechanic. All it did was help the mechanic avoid all these checks and diagnostic actions. It helped him get to a solution faster through reading a code. And that's a similar way. It's kind of an analogy. I mean, there's more to it than that, but I do think collectively it's important for just basic everyday businesses to bridge that gap between your online geeks that are adopting AI readily and wanting to really absorb it and take it as far as it could go, and your normal everyday small business that just wants to compete in the marketplace and continue to have a service that he does on a daily basis.
We're speaking with Christy Oconnor. We're talking about how to turn AI into a real business advantage. And you can find her at onconcomarketing.com, which I'll spell. It's part of her last name. It's OCONCO marketing.com. Her name is Christy Oconnor. So it's OConcomarketing.com. Did I get that right?
Yes, it's Oconco. Way to go with Ocongo.
There you go. I like that. Now, while you're saying this, you were talking about people checking AI and doing diagnostics and all this sort of stuff. And something came to mind rather recently. So, and I think I could be wrong, but I really think that it applies. And that is, we had a service person at the house to fix an appliance. I'm gonna be generic on purpose, and the person was just started their own home business 2 years ago, so could not possibly have known all the ins and outs of all these appliances and all these models, etc. It's just not possible because the person came from a different field. But you go, oh, great, I'm going to start doing this business. I'll go into AI. So what does the person do? Oh, this thing isn't working, replace. Oh, this isn't working, replace. Oh, this isn't working, replace. We spent more money than the cost of the appliance and it still wasn't fixed. It was just, and I'm thinking in my mind going, this person, and I could be wrong, but it's a great case where, it's just checking AI. Well, this isn't working. What it could be. Oh, well, replace this unit or replace that unit. And we, I mean, it's a joke that we replaced, and the cost of replacement was more than the cost of a new appliance. But it really happened. So I think that's something people can get skewed on AI. This is my opinion, because it as you say so well, it takes a human, it takes oversight, it takes somebody looking at it, going, well, and not just take the information that's fed to you, but evaluate it. Go, is this really true? You know, and use some discernment. Otherwise, you bring in your car to a shop, and if they have no experience with your vehicle, they're just going to start replacing everything. I know it sounds like an absurd example, but it's exactly the same that happened with our appliance. And I don't want to take my vehicle to a place and just have them start replacing everything, which, as you know, will rapidly cost more than the price of the vehicle. But I see that as happening if it's done incorrectly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that is an actual fact. And it's being discussed in our community on a daily basis that there is something that we're discussing as domain expertise. So, whenever you have AI in the loop, you have a human being in the loop, but it is 100% required to have a human being in that loop that has domain expertise, because the AI is so confident when it's wrong. It'll send you on a wild goose chase every single time. And I think that is something that a lot of people that are not used to working with AI, they'll be, oh, it's wrong all the time. Well, garbage in, garbage out. And we're becoming familiar with the term AI slop. So if you go back to SEO, go back to blog writing, go back to websites, now we're coming from a marketing standpoint, right? Well, we could go to mechanics, we could go to engineering. There's good design and there's bad design. There's good content and there's bad content. There's experts that can finesse humans, people that can finesse, and they're experts. They have domain expertise. And then there's hacks that are new. So you could just use the example again of a car. And if I have a flat tire, my ABS light might be on the dashboard on my car. Well, I'm a human being. I can physically see I have a flat tire. It's not my ABS. But now you take that same code reader, you plug it into the dash, and the code reader says, "Oh, your ABS light is on. There's an error code coming up on your ABS," and the bot would suggest, "Well, we should change that sensor. That's bad." Well, that bot lacks domain expertise, eyes, ears, and the human condition to be able to, like you said, have discernment. So in professional circles that are working with professional AI and different types of models for different use cases, are very well aware of the need and the problem of not having domain expertise. We actually just went through these are skill sets that you give bots in these large models when you're plugging them into the agentic flows. They have to have a skill set, and these skill set they're written documents that are in a knowledge base. So that's a whole thing, the knowledge base. But the quality of that knowledge base is what really dictates how well your bot is going to behave and be able to carry out that task. You could just do a quick Google search, garbage in, garbage out. You can come across a TikTok video that will tell you everything you wanted to know about a subject with absolutely no experience. Or you could come across a scholarly research document that cites multiple sources, that's indexed and has a long history of research and academic sources and authority. Those two things have two different weights. So when we teach our agents to use their large language reasoning model, they need to weigh, just like Google does, the expertise, the authority, and the trust factors of the sources. If it's just quote unquote AI slop, that has a weight of like 1. But if you've got a 35-year veteran with hard facts and data driven, result based data, that's an authority of 10. So again, we just need to understand as small businesses how AI thinks, where it's getting its information. If it's getting it from a bad source, you might be getting quote unquote AI slop. But if it's pulling from an expert with domain authority, it's a little bit more trusted. So it's just like anything else, there's good sources, there's bad sources.
Okay. Now we've kind of bashed AI just a little bit, not intending to, um, but there is a combination of it that is very powerful, very useful, very it can really help catapult the business. If we use that automation with our marketing, with our knowledge, we can create some real serious leverage. And are there with that, you're nodding, you're tracking with, are there types of business models, if that's the right way to say it, where it can work better for us, where it can help create more success for us?
Oh, at 100%, 1000%, without a doubt. I'm a proponent of AI. If it's used ethically and correctly and it's plugged in within a workflow, absolutely. I mean, AI can create, you're watching it create video. It's a workhorse when it comes to social media management, um, sentiment management, pattern recognition, and talk about lead generation. You can take the data from your PPC ad campaigns or anything that requires um, budgeting, numbers, reducing overhead, increasing efficiency through numbers. So this pattern recognition to create operational efficiency, that's really where the leverage is. Wherever you're losing time, wherever you're losing leads, wherever you don't have time to do the follow-ups, crunching contracts. I remember we would do just business development and we would sign on affiliates and we would sign up and try to make sales. We had to do purchasing. It would take us hours to comb through with our legal department 5, 10, 15, 20-page contracts and looking at the liability clauses, looking at the length of time for their non-disclosures, what their terms are in their contracts. You can just go ahead one time with your weighted knowledge bases with your bots and say, hey, look, these are our red lines. These are the do's and the don'ts. Does it pass? Does it pass? Now you still have to scan things like contracts. So let's not, let's not go too over the top. This is just an example, but something that's very granular and detailed like that may take several hours, you could very easily pass it through a bot, 100%.
That's a good point on the contracts. And I'm thinking with this and I'm going, okay, is there something, Christy, that should not be automated, even if we think it should be? Because, I think a human is needed on certain points of business. What's your take on that?
Yes, absolutely. Once again, it's the predictable flow for your customers. Human beings want human beings. So bots are good for saving time, increasing speed, helping you get a competitive edge, but they're not good at relationship building. We want to have that trust factor, and our business models are built on trust. If you don't have a foundation of trust in any business, doesn't matter what business it is, you won't succeed. And so that's the area that you really genuinely cannot replace. That human oversight, the judgment, the governance, cannot be replaced, and it would be irresponsible to replace those things.
Interesting, interesting. And part of using AI, when I do it, it's very minor at my level. It's very low level, asking it to help me write a post or to take all this information and let's write something about it. But what I get out is uh, a little bit too uh, scholarly, perhaps, or too. Uh, there's no human connection on it. It's just nice sounding words, but it doesn't really show that human element. And I'm wondering, is there a way to make AI sound more natural? I mean, you can say, write this post, but write it like a human, or it kind of sounds silly, or write it more natural. But you're just talking to a computer, basically. How does it know? So how can you use that to make it be more humanist, to make it more human-like?
Yeah. Well, if you have a custom model that you're training or a custom GPT that you're training, you can just simply give it examples and follow this style. And, just like a child, really, this is good, this is bad, this is success, this is a fail. I like this one. I don't like one. I don't like this one, and it'll definitely learn. But back to your point about what shouldn't be automated, like just take this conversation for example. We're in business. If either one of us decided not to show up and send our digital twin instead, the other person would be very offended. And I'd be like, geez, I really thought that I'd be talking to you today, or even the man that was coming to fix your appliance, unless you knew ahead of time and that was the world we lived in at that point, that might be different. But, you have a certain level of expectations. And that's what a brand is. It's a predetermined set of promises, and it's within a predictable path. So I just wanted to kind of drive that point home. But to have a bot sound a little bit more human is it's got to be coded. It's got to be coded, and the bot needs to be instructed because they really don't have the same cadence, emotion. When they pause or think or need something, a lot of it is mimicked and modeled. So we have to clearly identify the model for the bot to follow, but it can definitely be done. And that's the sign of a good AI engineer or a good AI architect, is a person that understands where to put the pauses, how to um, put the trust factor in there, to reassure so the customer's not left hanging. So all of those are built in, and it's really through conversational architecture and a dialogue flow that's pre-written into the knowledge base for that AI. And once again, that comes down to domain expertise. People that are more familiar with it can handle it. And I think if I don't want to get too negative, but because AI is handling a lot of the code and it's considered what we call vibe coding, give it your vibe. Just like you said, tell it you want a blog, or I want to write me a love letter. It'll do its best, considering its reasoning. But you'll be able to tell the difference between someone who really knows how to develop a custom human, reassuring artificial intelligence that's there to help, not to boast or not to just over talk or over explain.
Yeah, when I scan through social media, Christy, I can tell so easily this was written by a computer, this was written by a robot, this was written by AI, as opposed to the ones that are written by a person, because it's just that style, the human element, it's the word choice, it's how they write. And I think if in and I've tried this with AI. I gave it some of emails. I get 1,000 pitches a month to get on my show, and I gave them some with my parameters. But no matter what I did, it would say, don't interview this person, or yes on this. But they were always wrong. They're not always wrong, but didn't look at all the factors. And so no matter what I would explain, it just was, it's never perfect. So if I gave it broad uh, um, instructions, then I would get a preponderance of those that look like a good fit, but then I have to go through them because it might be an industry that I never thought before, and but it wouldn't be an industry that's good on my show, and but I would have never have thought of it before, to tell the AI, exclude this industry. How does AI know? So uh, if I give it broad instructions, and then I'm able to filter through, so it's kind of like a rough filter is the way I look at it, as far as that part goes. You know, um, and when I get pitched by an AI, again, I said I saw these in social media all the time. When I get it, I feel the person's not genuine. I can tell if somebody's pitching me from a computer, and it's like, well, it's not real. And I sense it. It could be the word choice, it could be a number of things, but I sense it. One thing is when there's too many emojis. I mean, we don't write with a lot of emojis. AI does. And you can tell it's just not real.
Yes, and I have to keep going back to the predictable path. So we're both in business, and that's predictable. And we already know the outcome, and it's not a desired outcome. So we've chosen to opt out of that predictable path. And so I think it's really important for us to understand what the use cases for AI really is going to be helpful for us and which ones are really not going to be helpful for us. And there's a little bit of a sticking point because there are some companies that work with a lot of inbound calls, a lot of help tickets, a lot of time consuming tasks, and there is AI fatigue. There are people that are reluctant to adopt AI. But once again, if you've got some talent, it's just like anything else. You can create an architecture. I think that's why people are breaking out into some autonomous AI agents and creating multiple mini agents. So if you take a large language model like a ChatGPT or a Gemini, it's a very vast kind of multimodal sort of large model. But if you have a mini model and all it does, just all it does, is know how to maybe just respond to social media with 3 or 4 words in a human sounding way. And it has hundreds of examples on what people would say and what they wouldn't say. That might be a better option to just have one small little agent that's its only task, um, is just to hang out and do some commenting, and that's it. Not a big model that overthinks or overspeaks. And I think there'll be people that will stop sitting behind the console and over prompting. They'll create just that mini model. They'll have additional workflows that are hard coded automations, like when you see this word or when it triggers this automation, the agent is within the workflow, then it goes back over to a hard coded automation. For example, like a welcome email or an autoresponder. If you get a welcome email on your purchase, you might have a standard template of like, hey, thanks for your order. Here's your receipt. We're so happy you're here. But then there might be one little block inside of there where the person has the opportunity to ask a question. And that mini model is only a question and answer bot, and it's trained on the handbook of all the questions and answers that's ever been asked. It knows all of the answers. It knows what not to say and what to say. It's fully disclosed and predictable that it is an AI. And what it's there is it's just helping the customer to get to its answer faster, because that's what people really want. They don't want to get lost in confusion. They don't want to get left hanging, kind of wondering what's going on. They want to have the answer now when they want it, but when they want a person, they want a person. So if we can help them get to a person faster, for example, I'm going to use the roofer example. The roofer can't answer the phone when he's on a roof. He can't do it. He probably has a lot of calls. Everybody knows, oh yeah, there's not a lot of roofers in my town. He usually returns his calls within a day or two. So if instead of pretending that you're a human and you have this weird sounding AI that everybody knows is a bot, why not just say, hey, I'm the AI virtual assistant. I'm here to take a message for Bob. What message can I leave him? Okay, I'll send him a text right now. Thank you so much for calling. And then immediately when the person hangs up, they get a text that says, hey, this is Bob's answering service. Sorry I missed your call. I usually check my messages within an hour. And then if he doesn't check them within an hour, Maybe they get another automated message. Hey, I understand that your message was delayed. Haven't forgotten about you. Feel free to check our question and answer bot if there's something quick. If it's an emergency, click this button and I'll immediately call you. Something like that. I don't want to get too complicated with it, but again, it's just setting up guardrails for the agents, limiting their ability to go too broad and too crazy that's obvious to consumers, and then just allowing this to be a tool for us, much like that code reader. We're not removing the human being. We're all walking in agreement. And I think that's, if we can take it back to the beginning of the conversation when you were talking about the first .com era, when people were having websites, everybody had an opinion. Well, you need one. Well, you didn't need one. Oh, it's just a business card. Now we know that if you don't have hundreds of pages and lots of blogs and images and a Google business profile and reviews and an email account and social media, it's grown into something that's its own living and breathing subculture connected to the open market. If we understand and look at it from that point of view, that that's what AI is, it's a tool and it's an agent to help us fill in those gaps and help us get to results a little bit faster. It's a tool.
Gotcha. I want to talk about the AI agent, but just before that, in looking through your material, you talk about one thing you talked about is eliminating things like pauses and repetition.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gone into that yet, have we?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, well, that's a latency issue. And generally, when an AI is pausing, it's because it has cognitive load. It's trying to weigh out the pros and cons or come to a decision through its reasoning. So if you have, say, for example, your question and answer bot, and you've got two of the same questions and they have different answers, that's going to create cognitive load. So if you're creating a knowledge base for a question and answer bot, go through it clearly. Make sure they're distinct questions with distinct and concise answers. Don't have two similar questions with two closely related answers that could possibly, there's not a lot of maybes when it comes to bots, they're analytical, very black and white. Now, there are some weights and gauges when there are some gray areas, but you want to reduce the gray areas in the knowledge bases and have very clear guidelines and clear rules, like never ever say this, always try to do this. Don't say, well, maybe you could if, but then again, those types of things are just going to create lots of pauses. It's going to make the bot hallucinate, make stuff up. So that's how you reduce that.
Gotcha. Thanks for explaining that. All right, let's go into the AI agent. We've talked about it. And for those that don't know what it is, let's define what's an AI agent and kind of walk us through this.
Yep. Well, we're moving into autonomous agents now where people will be, I would say, in the very near future, having their own personal AIs on their own servers, working in the background on their own websites. And these are just basically AI models that are trained for a specific utility. So once again, a question and answer bot could just be an agent. That's your customer servant agent. That it's an AI employee. You could have a project management agent that's literally dedicated only to maybe doing your follow-up calls or maybe answering your email. Think of it as a virtual assistant.
Okay. So for us, for a business owner, an entrepreneur, how do we use this into? It's a very generic, very broad question. How do we use this, and how many agents are there? I like to understand this. I mean, it's not just one because we talked about very specific task oriented agents or sub agents or whatever the wording was. So, kind of walk us through a little bit more of what we should be looking at on this.
Well, an AI agent is what you create it to be. You give it a knowledge base, you basically write a document, think about it as a handbook. You're my virtual assistant, and your job is to um, only ask one question, and that's it. It's how can I help you today? And then collect that data and send it to the boss. And that's it. That's your job. You could have a completely different job outline if you want it to be a little bit more robust. Not only do you want it to find out what they want, but then you want it to maybe look up the questions and answer handbook and try to answer their questions. So it's just like an employee. If you give someone a job description, that's an agent. You put it in writing, but rather than a human being doing it, it's artificial intelligence that can carry out that task in the online world. And really, for businesses, the best way to think about it is AI is used for two things. If you just boil it down to two things: decision making and task routing. Okay. I'll give you another example. Let's go back to the roofer. I've worked with some roofers and they don't like small jobs. They want big jobs. So when we have the AI answering service, the AI answering service is trained to say, can you tell me a little bit about your project? Is this a leak? Is there underlying damage? And then because it can think and it can reason, if it's a large job that most likely requires a full roof replacement, go ahead and book an online appointment in the calendar for an on-site evaluation, and the roofer will show up for an online quote. But if you think it's a small job, like a leak around the chimney, only a couple of shingles missing, don't book the appointment. Have somebody call back or send an email with what the next steps could be. That's decision making. That's a perfect way to use AI for a very busy type of business where it takes the important calls, books them into your calendar, sets the appointment, and saves you time while filtering out the non-qualified leads. Another example is task routing. Same phone call. If you find out it's an emergency and the guy has puddles of water on his floor and it's an emergency, send it through, open up an emergency ticket, make sure that the appropriate project manager immediately gets a text. But if it's a salesperson that just wants to sell us a service, that can be put in the circular file. So those two things are the number one way AI is going to help businesses in every way. Where are we losing time? Where can we increase efficiency? And that's by decision making and task routing.
Okay, I'm a business owner and decent sized town, and I would love. I'm listening to Christy and Tony talking. I'm going. I want this. I want to put this on my website. Hi, may I help you and route people and get some prospects? Where do I start? Where do I find this AI? Which AI is better? I've got all these questions. What does it take? Do I need to hire an AI expert? Can I just find an AI that will install it for me? Kind of this, take us through like what do we do?
Yeah, I think you need to have somebody that has some AI engineering and AI architecture experience. There are a lot of tools where you could just buy, like for example, if you go to a hosting company, hostinger says, "Oh, we'll just give you AI." That AI will help you find out how to build your email box. It will help you maybe figure out how to build your own website. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, there's lots of tools out there, and you can scope them out and look at the reviews just like you do any other product. But if you're a business and you're serious, you want to build your business, you've got a team, and you're not interested in a DIY, tech tech journey, I would definitely hire somebody that has some expertise in this and knows what they're doing. Because of vibe coding, everybody and their brother and their cousin too thinks they know how to build and work with AI. It's really just not the case. You definitely need the domain expertise and someone who has experience, someone who can help you walk through your day-to-day operations and understand where the decision is in order to plug in that AI within the workflow. because it'll make it a lot easier. With an experienced person, you could be up and running in less than 24 hours. And you set up these automations like you do Legos. The first thing you do is you take the lowest hanging fruit, the thing that's causing you the most headaches, that's the easiest to plug in, and you just start there. Get that perfected, get it working, and then, okay, now how can we route it or make one decision? How can we route it here? How could we maybe add one more layer? And that's definitely how to do it. These can be connected in blocks like Legos.
Oh, that's really cool. So if I get an AI expert who could help me speed it through, because we're all smart, Christy, we can all figure everything out. Only it can take such a long time and trial and error and mistakes, which can be costly. But for us that are listening, whether we're an executive coach or we're a professional speaker, a podcaster, a marketer, whatever we do, it'd be so nice to just be able to put something on the website and help route, because to me it seems like a very well-heeled receptionist that, hi, how can I help you, where would you like to go? You don't just walk into a building and just start finding the office you want. When you go into a building, there's a reception that routes you to where you go. So the way I think of it from the old school is someone that will route people coming to my site based on what I have that I can do to help them with what they want. Um, and are these, so these aren't something cookie cutter, because I'm sure if I searched, I'm positive I could find a lot of people selling a lot of things that you just plug and play. But again, are these something to avoid? Could these be a nightmare? Is it worth having? Obviously, when you're paying for a person, you're paying a little bit more for that knowledge and that expertise. So there's a balance here, Christy. Help me figure this out. Is it worth plug and play for a small operation, or should I go for someone that really knows this stuff and basically do it right the first time, probably?
Yeah, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. If you think that you're going to get your entire business automated for a $30 a month app, I think you're. I think it's not really um, realistic. You know, it depends on what you want it to do. If all you want it to do is just have a question and answer chatbot, you could probably get that out of the box. No matter what you do, test, battle test it, stress test it, use it, make sure that you actually do it. Because like, for example, we had a voice AI doing inbound calls, and I said, I wonder what would happen if I said, could you tell me about all that you do, just as an idiomatic expression? Well, the bot proceeded to tell me all it did. It literally data dumped everything. And you're going to find that you're going to be paying a lot of money in token fees. It's just like having a cell phone. If you stay on the cell phone minute after minute after minute, those minutes they're adding up. So there are fees associated with this, and you do get what you pay for. And my personal opinion is that it should be personalized. It should be customized. Everything should be hyper personalized because everybody is different. Your podcast is different than my podcast, even though we both have similar, we have a marketing background. We both have podcasts, but we're not the same. We're two very different people, and things should be tailored.
Okay, I'm thinking with this, and this is kind of like the last question, but a little bit different. My name is I'm Joe or John or Jim. I listen to Tony's show every week, and I want to do something. I'm going, well, where do I start? What's the first thing I should do? It kind of like the last question, but I'm like trying to make it actionable now. What's the first step I should take?
You need to determine where your decision making path is and where your task routing path is just think about your day to day. Literally go through the exercise in your mind of, okay, I get up, I have coffee, I have breakfast, and this is what my day looks like every day. And what part of your day is that bottleneck? Where is that bottleneck? So that's what AI can really help you do, is release those bottlenecks and open up the flow of efficiency. And for that, it's different for everybody. A lot of times they take too many inbound calls. That could be an area where it's like, man, my phone is constantly ringing off the hook. or they just don't have the time to, read the documents. It really just depends on where that bottleneck is in each individual case. So I think that that's really where it would start. Now, some businesses have similarities, if you're an online order taker and you're manufacturing widgets and you have too many orders coming in and you can't you don't have enough time to make all the widgets, then that's where your bottleneck is. But if you're someone that where their phone is ringing off the hook, that's a different story. So you've got to find your bottleneck, and then you work from there.
I like that. It's very, very good. Once again, this is Christy O'Connor talking about how to turn AI into a real business advantage. And you can find her at Oconco, Oconco. I didn't say it right. Oconco marketing.com. Let me get
Is that my last name? O'Connor.
Marketing. Pardon?
It's my last name, O'Connor.
O'Connor without the R.
Oconco. Yeah.
Oconco marketing.com. Christy, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. It opened up, it got me thinking, and it really brought this more to the home front of how important it is and how you have to do it just right, just like when the internet first came out. So I really appreciate the advice. I just want to thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been just wonderful that you allowed me the space to talk, and thank you. Appreciate it.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, there you go. So good to have Christy on. Guys, if you like this, just share this with your friends and tell them about Christy at oconcomarketing.com. I think I actually said that right this time. And talk and tell your friends about AI and some of the nuances and what it's like, and kind of some of the things that it can do. It can help your business. Check it out. Wherever you're following this, wherever you're watching the show, listening to the show, would you please follow us there? It helps a lot to bring in more good guests to you, to give you insights to help you with your business, and so much other things. So please, we really appreciate that you follow us wherever you are. All right, guys, I thank you once again. Let's use this and let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks. Remember, just take action. Success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Sow good seeds, do good deeds. And I'll see you on the next episode.